This presentation has been prepared by Donegal Pro-Life as a source of information in favour of retaining the 8th Amendment, i.e. Article 43.3 in the Irish Constitution. This presentation is considered suitable for secondary school pupils from transition year on, subject to approval by the school authorities, with the exception of the addendum, which contains 3 graphic images of aborted babies. There are 11 topics covered, including 2 videos on abortion procedures, 1 video on suicide ideation, and 1 video on life-limiting conditions. This is a list of the 11 topics covered, each introduced by a title slide. Topic 1. Introduction. Man's inhumanity to man. 6 million Jews were exterminated in gas chambers and dumped into mass graves. In the war in Cambodia, there were death camps in every village. Now we have the war in the Middle East, where countless innocent men, women and children have been bombed to death. There is no escape when you see this kind of destruction. Millions of innocent lives have been destroyed by man's inhumanity to man. The lives of millions of babies are also being destroyed by abortion throughout the world in a most barbaric manner. It is the government's intention to repeal the 8th Amendment to our Constitution, and by doing so, our country will follow this horrific example and become a baby-killing nation too. But remember, our government cannot do this without the consent of the people in the ballot box. Topic 2. The 8th Amendment of the Irish Constitution protect the right to life of both mother and baby. Now let's look at what is the 8th Amendment. Article 40 of the Irish Constitution covers the fundamental rights and personal rights of the Irish citizen, and Article 43.3 is the 8th Amendment, which introduced a constitutional ban on abortion in 1983 by recognising the right to life of both the mother and her unborn child. Article 43.3 states as follows: the state acknowledges the right to life of the unborn and, with due regard to the equal right to life of the mother, guarantees in its laws to respect and, as far as practicable, by its laws to defend and vindicate that right. Thanks to the 8th Amendment, it is estimated there are tens of thousands of Irish citizens alive today who would otherwise have been killed before birth. Some of them may even be your friends. In fact, an analysis of the international abortion rates in the actuarial report, which was commissioned by the Pro-Life campaign, state that at least 100,000 babies' lives have been saved by the 8th Amendment. Topic 3. What is abortion? Not everyone realises what an abortion is, including those who have had one. Abortion can be defined in many different ways, but generally speaking it is seen as a medical procedure to end a pregnancy so that the baby is not born alive. In other words, it is the direct and intentional killing of an unborn baby. We were all here once, nourished by our mother. Every unborn child is a new and unique individual from the moment of conception, but abortion stops a beating heart. A baby's heart is beating 18 days after conception, before most mothers know they are pregnant. If you are pronounced dead when your heart stops beating, why aren't you pronounced alive when your heart starts beating? You are alive in the womb. If you are not alive, why are you growing? Why is your heart beating? Now let's meet Samuel Armas, born in 1999, who is the child shown in a famous photograph dubbed "The Hand of Hope." The image on the left shows Samuel as a baby in the womb, undergoing a surgical procedure at Vanderbilt University Hospital, Nashville. We see his tiny hand extending from the opening in his mother's uterus and touching the surgeon's fingers during his open fetal surgery to correct a spina bifida lesion, and then in the photo on the right as a very happy 16-year-old. Dr. Joseph Brunner and Dr. Noel Tulipin developed the technique for correcting certain fetal problems on babies while in the womb, allowing the pregnancy to continue until normal full term, This was the surgical team's 54th operation. Topic number 4. Abortion procedures, surgical and medical. The following 4 videos last 11 minutes in total. They illustrate the abortion procedures used at different developmental stages of the unborn baby. They do not show the gory details that take place in reality. Some scenes may be upsetting, so you may choose to look away or leave the room as you wish.
My name is Dr. Anthony Levatino. I'm a practicing obstetrician-gynecologist, and I performed over 1,200 abortions. First, I'm going to describe a first trimester medical abortion. This is a procedure in which the mother swallows pills in order to terminate her baby, and it is performed up to the 9th week of pregnancy. The procedure involves 2 steps. Step 1. At the abortion clinic or doctor's office, the woman takes pills which contain mifepristone, also called RU46. RU46 blocks the action of a hormone called progesterone. Progesterone is naturally produced in the mother's body to stabilize the lining of the uterus. When RU46 blocks progesterone, the lining of the mother's uterus breaks down, cutting off blood and nourishment to the baby, who then dies inside the mother's womb. It is important to note that even after it has been taken, it is possible to reverse the effects of RU46 and save the baby if progesterone is administered. The sooner, the better. Step 2. 24 to 48 hours after taking RU46, the woman takes misoprostol, also called Cytotec, that is administered either orally or vaginally. RU46 and misoprostol together cause severe cramping, contractions, and often heavy bleeding to force the dead baby out of the woman's uterus. The process can be very intense and painful, and the bleeding and contractions can last from a few hours to several days. While she could lose her baby any time and anywhere during this process, the woman will often sit on a toilet as she prepares to expel the child, which she will then flush. She may even see her dead baby within the pregnancy sac. At 9 weeks, for example, the baby will be almost an inch long, and if she looks carefully, she might be able to count the fingers and toes. After she has disposed of her baby, the woman may have bleeding and spotting for several weeks. Bleeding lasts, on average, 9 to 16 days. 8% of women bleed more than 30 days, and 1% require hospitalization because of heavy bleeding. RU46 is only FDA approved for the first 7 weeks of pregnancy. While RU46 can be used off-label up to 9 weeks, the failure rate increases as the pregnancy progresses. At 7 weeks, it has a 5% failure rate. At 8 weeks, an 8% failure rate, and at 9 weeks, a 10% failure rate. If failure occurs, she will usually be offered a surgical abortion. For the mother, medical abortion often causes abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, and heavy bleeding. Maternal deaths have occurred, most frequently due to infection and undiagnosed ectopic pregnancy. First trimester surgical abortion called suction D&C, dilatation and curettage. This is the most frequently performed abortion and is used typically from 5 to 13 weeks of pregnancy. After administering anesthesia, the abortionist uses a speculum like this. This is placed inside the vagina and opened using this screw on the side, allowing the abortionist to see the cervix, the entrance to the uterus. The cervix acts as a gate that stays closed for the duration of pregnancy, protecting the baby until it is ready for birth. The abortionist uses a series of metal rods called dilators, like these, which increase in thickness, and inserts them into the cervix to dilate it, gaining access to the inside of the uterus where the baby resides. The baby has a heartbeat, fingers, toes, arms, and legs, but its bones are still weak and fragile. The abortionist takes a suction catheter like this one. This is a 14 French suction catheter. It's clear plastic, about 9 inches long, and it has a hole through the center. It is inserted through the cervix into the uterus. The suction machine is then turned on with a force 10 to 20 times more powerful than your household vacuum cleaner. The baby is rapidly torn apart by the force of the suction and squeezed through this tubing down into the suction machine, followed by the placenta. Though the uterus is mostly emptied at this point, one of the risks of a suction D&C is incomplete abortion. Essentially, pieces of the baby or placenta left behind. This can lead to infection or bleeding. In an attempt to prevent this, the abortionist uses a curette to scrape a lining of the uterus. A curette is basically a long-handled curved blade. Once the uterus is empty, the speculum is removed and the abortion is complete. The risks of suction D&C include perforation or laceration of the uterus or cervix, potentially damaging intestine, bladder, and nearby blood vessels, hemorrhage, infection, and in rare instances, even death. Future pregnancies are also at a greater risk for loss or premature delivery due to abortion-related trauma and injury to the cervix. Second trimester surgical abortion called dilatation and evacuation, or D&E. A D&E is performed between 13 and 24 weeks of pregnancy. After administering anesthesia, the abortionist uses a weighted speculum, like this one, that opens the vagina widely. Because second trimester babies are so large, this greater access facilitates a late-term abortion. Late-term abortion requires that the cervix be prepared 24 to 48 hours in advance with laminaria. Laminaria is a type of sterilized seaweed that absorbs water over 8 to 12 hours and swells to several times its original diameter. Once removed, metal dilators can be used to further open the cervix as needed. Once the cervix has been stretched open, the suction tube is placed inside. A baby at 20 weeks gestation is as big as the length of my hand, from head to rump, not counting the legs. The suction machine is turned on, and pale yellow amniotic fluid surrounding the baby is suctioned out through the catheters. With babies this big, they don't fit through catheters this size. The baby's bones and skull are too strong to be torn apart by suction alone. This is a Sofer clamp. A Sofer clamp is made of stainless steel. It's about 13 inches long. The business end is about 2.5 inches long and 1/2 inch wide, and there are rows of sharp teeth. This is a grasping instrument. When it gets a hold of something, it does not let go. The abortionist uses this clamp to grasp an arm or leg. Once he has a firm grip, the abortionist pulls hard in order to tear the limb from the baby's body. One by one, the rest of the limbs are removed, along with the intestines, the spine, and the heart and lungs. Usually the most difficult part of the procedure is extracting the baby's head, which is about the size of a large plum at 20 weeks. The head is grasped and crushed. The abortionist knows he has crushed the skull when a white substance comes out of the cervix. This was the baby's brains. The abortionist then removes skull pieces. He removes the placenta and any leftover parts of the baby with a curette, scraping the lining of the uterus for any remaining tissue. The abortionist then collects the baby parts and reassembles them to make sure that there are 2 arms, 2 legs, and all the pieces. Once all the parts have been accounted for, the abortion is complete. For the woman, this procedure carries a significant risk of major complications, including perforation or laceration of the uterus or cervix, with possible damage to the bowel, bladder, and other maternal organs. Infection and hemorrhage can also occur, which can even lead to death. Future pregnancies are also at greater risk for loss or premature delivery due to abortion-related trauma and injury to the cervix. Finally, I'm going to describe a third trimester induced abortion, which is performed at 25 weeks to term. At this point, the baby is almost fully developed and viable, meaning he or she could survive outside the womb if the mother were to go into labor prematurely. Because the baby is so large and developed, this procedure takes 3 or 4 days to complete. On day 1, the abortionist uses a large needle to inject a drug called digoxin. Digoxin is generally used to treat heart problems, but a high enough dosage of digoxin will cause fatal cardiac arrest. The abortionist inserts the needle with the digoxin through the woman's abdomen or through her vagina and into the baby, targeting either the head, torso, or heart. The baby will feel it. Babies at this stage feel pain. When the needle pierces the baby's body and the digoxin takes effect, the life of the baby will end. The abortionist then inserts multiple sticks of seaweed called laminaria into the woman's cervix. They will slowly open up the cervix for delivery of a stillborn baby. While the woman waits for the laminaria to dilate her cervix, she carries her dead baby inside of her for 2 to 3 days. On day 2, the abortionist replaces the laminaria and may perform a second ultrasound to ensure the baby is dead. If the child is still alive, he administers another lethal dose of digoxin. The woman then goes back to where she is staying while her cervix continues to dilate. If she goes into labor and is unable to make it to the clinic in time, she will give birth at home or in a hotel. In this case, she may be advised to deliver her baby into a bathroom toilet. The abortionist then comes to remove the baby and clean up. If she can make it to the clinic, she will do so during her severest contractions and deliver her dead son or daughter. If the baby does not come out whole, then the procedure becomes a D&E, a dilation and evacuation, and the abortionist uses clamps and forceps to dismember the baby, piece by piece. Once the placenta and all the body parts have been removed, the abortion is complete. Late-term abortions have a high risk of hemorrhage, lacerations, and uterine perforations, as well as a risk of maternal death. Future pregnancies are also at a greater risk for loss or premature delivery due to abortion-related trauma and injury to the cervix. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm Dr. Anthony Levatino, and in the early part of my career as an OBGYN, I performed over 1,200 abortions. One day, after completing one of those abortions, I looked at the remains of a preborn child whose life I had ended, and all I could see was someone's son or daughter. I came to realize that killing a baby at any stage of pregnancy for any reason is wrong. I want you to know today, no matter where you're at or what you've done, you can change. Make a decision today to protect the preborn. Thank you for your time. I will no longer do any more abortions. When you finally figure out that killing a baby that big for money is wrong, that it doesn't take you too long to figure out it doesn't matter if the baby is this big or this big or this big or maybe even this big, it's all the same. And I haven't done any since then, and I never will.
The following video excerpt from the film The Silent Scream is narrated by Dr. Bernard Nathanson, an obstetrician-gynecologist who stated that he had presided over 60,000 deaths in his New York clinic prior to stopping the practice of abortion. Dr. Nathanson described in graphic detail the killing of a 12-week-old baby in a suction abortion, which gives you an insight into how the baby in the womb is affected by an abortion procedure.
This suction tip, which you can see moving violently back and forth on the bottom of the screen, is the lethal instrument which will ultimately tear apart and destroy the child. It is only after the fluid has been broken, the sac has been disrupted, that the tip will actually come against the child. But we can see the tip moving back and forth as the abortionist seeks the child's body. Once again, we see the child's mouth wide open in a silent scream in this particular freeze frame. This is the silent scream of a child threatened imminently with extinction. Now the heart rate has speeded up dramatically, and the child's movements are violent at this point. It does sense aggression in its sanctuary. It is moving away. One can see it moving to the left side of the uterus in an attempt, a pathetic attempt, to escape the inexorable instruments which the abortionist is using to extinguish its life.
Is it possible to reverse the action of the abortion pill, RU486? Some women who take the abortion pill may later wish to reverse the medical abortion process. But is it too late to do so? It may not be too late, as they can choose to follow the abortion pill reversal procedure developed by Dr. Delgado, which involves the use of the hormone progesterone, which counteracts RU486. This protocol has been successful in a number of cases, but further studies are required. Topic number 5. Abortion hurts women. The Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals in the United States, in their advice to women considering an abortion, states that women have a right to know that the following risks are associated with abortion: pelvic infection, incomplete abortion, blood clots in the uterus, heavy bleeding, cut or torn cervix, perforation of the uterus wall, future childbearing may be compromised. A study by Dr. David Ferguson, published in the British Journal of Psychiatry in November 2008, states that abortion carries an increased risk of mental health problems, including anxiety, depression, substance abuse, self-harm, suicide. You may also wish to note that an increase in the suicide rate of women who had an abortion is documented in a large-scale study on suicide after pregnancy by Professor Mika Gisler in Finland in 1997, who found that the suicide rate among women who had undergone abortions in the prior year was 3 times higher compared to women in the general population, and 6 times higher compared to women who give birth. If you are considering an abortion or have been hurt by abortion, these are some of the organisations who can offer help and support. Ask Magella, Cura, Gianna Care, Good Counsel Network Ireland, Precious Life, Rachel's Vineyard, and there are others out there who can assist. A handout of the above information is available. Topic number 6. Let's look at the number of Irish women who had an abortion in England and Wales in 2001 and 2015. The following are abortion statistics on women from the Republic of Ireland, issued by the British Department of Health. In 2001, there were 6,673 abortions, and in 2015, this was reduced to 3,451. The number of abortions have dropped for the 14th time since 2001. This decline was despite an increase in population and an increase in women aged 15 to 44, a decrease in abortions of 48.3%. The following are abortion statistics on women from Northern Ireland issued by the British Department of Health. In 2001, there were 1,577 abortions. In 2015, this was reduced to 833. The numbers of abortions on women from Northern Ireland have also continued to drop over the same 14-year period, which is a decrease of 47.2%. The data from the British Department of Health show, as in previous years, that no abortions were carried out in emergency to save a woman's life, despite previous propagandist statements. The reduction in Irish abortions is very gratifying. Over 100,000 lives have been saved thanks to the 8th Amendment. It is very clear that there's a national trend against abortion on the island of Ireland. A pro-life ethos is shared by the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Why should we change our laws to favour removing the protection of the 8th Amendment? Are you aware that repeal of the 8th Amendment will eventually result in a demand that our nurses, doctors and healthcare workers be required to partake in the killing of babies in our hospitals? Topic number 7. The distance from an abortion facility can affect the rate of abortion according to the Texas study published in the Journal of American Medical Association. In 2013, the state of Texas enacted laws which resulted in reducing the number of facilities providing abortion from 41 in 2012 to 17 in June 2016. The new laws required all Texas facilities performing abortions to meet hospital-like standards. Doctors doing abortions must have admitting privileges at a hospital within 30 miles of an abortion clinic. According to analysis reported in the New Scientist, when the change in distance was 100 miles or more, the number of abortions decreased 50.3%. In June 2016, the Texas law was struck down by the US Supreme Court. Increasing the legalisation of abortion on the island of Ireland. The impact of the Texas data would suggest that the further you are from an abortion facility, the less likely you are to seek an abortion. Once abortion is introduced, even on restrictive grounds, it is only a matter of time before the grounds are expanded. When particular categories of human beings are singled out as unworthy of legal protection in the womb, we undermine respect for all human life, born and unborn. There is no escaping this reality. The local availability of abortion increases the abortion rate, a mother's testimony. Mothers have stated that they are very grateful that abortion was not available in their local hospital when they were faced with a crisis pregnancy, when their initial reaction then was to have an abortion. But as abortion was not readily available, this gave them time to reflect and keep their babies, and as a result, they now have a son or daughter whom they love and who loves them. In fact, this may be their only child, a child who also brings with him or her the possibility of having grandchildren in the future. Topic number 8. Are there any situations where it is okay to kill the baby? What if the mother's life is at risk? In the case of rape or incest, the mother is suicidal. We see a video on the doctor's evidence before the Donegal Committee in 2013 stating that abortion is not a treatment for suicidal ideation. What if the baby has a life-limiting condition? And we will see a video, One Day More, where mothers talk about their babies. Are there any cases when it's okay to kill a baby? Such situations that are listed in the previous slide are used by people to justify their support for abortion. Since none of these circumstances are sufficient to justify the killing of human beings after birth, they are not sufficient to justify the killing of human beings before birth. What if a mother's life is at risk? Medical experts tell us that abortion is never necessary to save the life of a mother. In Ireland, medical treatment needed during pregnancy is never denied to a mother, even if this may result in the unintentional loss of the life of her baby. The ban on abortion in Ireland means that our doctors protect the lives of both mother and baby. This has led to excellent standards of maternal health care, where both mother and baby are best cared for and women's lives are never put at risk. Ireland remains one of the safest places in the world for a woman to have a baby. What about the Savita Halappanavar case? Savita Halappanavar died tragically in 2012 from an infection of her blood called septic shock. The inquest into her death found that the cause of her death was medical misadventure. The unavailability of legalised abortion was not a factor. It has always been standard practice for doctors in Ireland to intervene, to give all necessary treatment to any pregnant woman, even if that treatment may result in the unintended death of the baby. What about the case of rape or incest? Rape is an horrific act of violence against women. Women need long-term compassion, not a quick-fix solution. Abortion does not reverse a rape. Studies have shown that abortion can seem like another violation and trauma for the rape victim, and can increase the risk of mental health problems. Rape victims deserve better than abortion. Figures show that fewer than 1% of all abortions take place because of rape or incest. Up to 85% of the women who become pregnant through rape or incest choose to have their children. Abortion kills an innocent child for the crime of his or her father. Killing a child, regardless of how he or she was conceived, is always wrong. What if the mother is suicidal? At the government hearing on abortion in 2013, all the medical experts agreed that killing the unborn is never a treatment for suicide. In fact, evidence was given that women who undergo abortions are 6 times more likely to die by suicide. This advice was ignored by many of our TDs and senators, and as a result, abortion on a threat of suicide became legal in Ireland. Women need support, medication and compassion, not the trauma of abortion. The following 4-minute video allows us to hear a summary of the medical experts' opinions as presented to the Dáil.
The government wants to legalise abortion in Ireland on suicide grounds, but they are ignoring the evidence that shows abortion does not help women who are suicidal, and in fact it can hurt them. In January, the government held Oireachtas committee hearings and asked doctors and psychiatrists to give expert evidence on this issue. All of the medical experts agreed that abortion is never a treatment for suicide.
We've not had the experience of seeing any women who are suicidal where the appropriate treatment for their suicidal feelings would have been a termination of pregnancy.
St Patrick's Hospital submitted that there is no evidence, either in the literature or from the work of the hospital, that indicates that termination of pregnancy is an effective treatment for any mental health disorder or difficulty.
In my work as a psychiatrist, and I run the attempted suicide service in the Mater Hospital, where we see and assess over 400 attempted suicides in women per year. And I have never seen a pregnant woman who was suicidal for whom abortion was the only answer.
And none of the experts knew of a single case where an Irish woman had died by suicide because abortion was not available.
I'm not aware of any deaths as a result of suicide because a termination was declined to somebody.
Have we ever had to perform a termination of pregnancy because of risk of suicide? Not in my experience.
They warned that if a woman is profoundly depressed and mentally ill, she would be advised not to take any major life decision at that time, and that abortion was not a treatment for such cases.
If she's profoundly depressed and mentally ill, she would normally be advised not to take any major life decision at that time, and frequently admission to hospital.
The notion of even doing an emergency termination there is just, it's completely obsolete in terms of a person who's extremely suicidal.
The treatment for suicidality is to make sure that women are safe and that they have appropriate support, medication and psychological treatment. In fact, evidence was given that women who undergo abortions are 6 times more likely to die by suicide, and that abortion is hurting women.
There's another psychiatrist called Ferguson, who is actually a pro-choice person. He has done a lot of research on this, and he believes that abortion does increase overall the risk of mental illness post-abortion by about 30%.
The experts have spoken, and they agree that abortion is not a treatment for suicide. The government needs to listen to the evidence. Abortion is not the answer. See more at thelifeinstitute.net.
What if the baby has a life-limiting condition? Research shows that 90% of Irish parents do not abort their baby following a life-limiting diagnosis. Those parents have then been able to spend precious time with their children, both while the baby was in the womb and then for hours, days and sometimes weeks, months and even years after birth. These are our special children. They need love like all of us. Abortion not only denies parents precious time with their baby, it inhumanely and violently ends a child's life. Unborn babies with life-limiting conditions have a right to life. The phase, fatal fetal abnormalities, sometimes used to describe these babies, is not a medical diagnosis. Let's look at some of the real facts. The percentage of Down syndrome babies sentenced to death in the UK, 92% were killed. In Denmark, 98% were killed. And in Iceland, 100% of children with Down syndrome were killed. Remember, life doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. Our next video, entitled One Day More, is about the experiences that some Irish women had when they were told that their babies they were expecting had life-limiting conditions.
I found out there was a problem with John's development at 24 weeks.
I found out that my baby had anencephaly at my routine 22-week scan.
The baby had Edwards syndrome, which we had no idea what it was.
Throughout the whole pregnancy, we had started with possible miscarriage to, and now an increased risk of Down syndrome to problems with the heart, fluid on the brain.
The nurse said that she couldn't see full limbs.
The final thing, the doctor said that they might need to revive him when he's born.
I think I asked him how long? And he said, well, less than a year.
It's devastating when you hear there's something wrong with your little baby. We wanted to give him every chance possible.
I was in complete shock. I'd never even thought that there were such children whose limbs didn't grow at all in the womb.
Our plans, our life ahead with this little boy suddenly out the window. So it was really, really difficult at first, but at the same time, my mother's instinct towards him, I felt so protective of him. I felt that almost immediately, just this, even more intense desire to protect him and to love him and to give him everything we could while we had him.
So we got the little video of him in the womb moving, and we found out that he was a boy, of course, around the 20 weeks. We named him.
There wasn't much support for my decision to keep John. It was my baby, this was my child, and he was very precious to me.
The idea of even talking about termination, I actually found quite difficult at the time. The care they did give us, the care the doctor gave us in particular, he invited us back a number of weeks later and told us to bring the whole family for a scan so that they could all see their brother. And he was just as loved each day. The doctor assured us he experienced no pain.
She did smile once, and it was when I spoke to her in the cot. John, my husband, is convinced that she smiled when she heard my voice.
Of my 3 children, he is always optimistic, sunny-natured, very funny, full of life. He makes a huge impact on his family, on his friends, on his school community and on the wider community. He's involved in loads of things. He's an altar server in the church, and he does trampolining, he does somersaults and backflips and front flips, and he can swim 40 lengths of the pool, no problem.
He lived for 17 minutes, but both myself and my husband got to hold him, tell him we loved him. And we got to, do all the things we'd done with our other children. That time in our family was one of the most precious times of experiencing family that I ever remember. And I wouldn't swap that for any of the pain of losing him. We take these sorts of things out on his birthday, and we remember just how loved he was in his short time. He might have only lived for a few minutes, but he was very loved. He had a lifetime's worth of love in those few minutes and in the time that we carried him.
The experience that we had of having her at home, being part of the family, was a really positive one. She was able to be held in loving arms, and when she died, she was also held in loving arms.
Any of us would love to be contacted at any stage, because we know how helpful it was to us to have somebody just understand the pain. Somebody understanding the pain you're going through is invaluable.
For somebody to come in and just kind of almost take charge and give hope and support all the way through, I think that would be just make an amazing difference.
It helped me take it one day at a time and cherish him for what he was there and then in my tummy, and every little kick that followed.
Topic number 9. Will our hospital theatres become killing grounds? Successive governments have failed to manage our hospital waiting lists, failed to provide sufficient beds for patients, failed to recruit doctors and nurses in order to deal with the health crisis in this country. Yet hospital theatres throughout Ireland have been designated to facilitate the killing of innocent babies. The hospitals designated to carry out abortions are listed in the 2013 Act. If the 8th Amendment is removed, then we could have doctors, nurses and ancillary staff in one hospital theatre killing a baby, and in another saving a mother and her baby's life. Is it right to put hospital staff in the position where they are duty-bound to save the lives of some babies, but kill others? It simply does not make sense and is unjust. Capital punishment in Ireland was prohibited in statute law in 1990. A constitutional amendment passed by referendum in 2001 prohibits reintroduction of the death penalty, even during a state of emergency or war. Capital punishment is also forbidden by several human rights treaties to which the state is a party. Is the state now intent on condemning innocent children to death before they are born? Topic number 10. What has happened in other countries where abortion is legal? Please consider this when voting on the abortion issue. When asked to vote in favour of abortion, you may be told that you're only being asked to agree to the killing of those unborn babies that were conceived as a result of rape or incest, or because they may have life-limiting conditions. All these babies who are targeted for killing are innocent of any wrongdoing. We are being asked to vote in favour of killing them. Is that just? In reality, this will result in the killing of not one, but thousands of totally innocent unborn babies. You may ask, how can that be? The reality is that once a little abortion is legalised, then over a period of time, widespread abortion becomes the norm. This is the case in England, Scotland and Wales, where it is legal to kill unborn babies up to 24 weeks, even though a baby of 24 weeks can survive if born alive, or in the case of a baby with a disability. It is legal to kill the baby up to birth, which includes babies with Down syndrome. Today, over 200,000 unborn babies are killed every year in Britain, and 92% of all babies diagnosed with Down syndrome are aborted. Would it have been right to kill these babies before birth? Their parents chose life. Research also suggested that dozens of babies are aborted every year for treatable abnormalities, such as cleft lip and palate, or club foot. It has also been revealed that as a result of botched abortions, some babies are being born alive and left to die. A total of 66 infants survived NHS termination attempts in 1 year alone, it emerged. Rather than dying at birth as was intended, they were able to breathe unaided. About half were alive for an hour, while one survived 10 hours. The following slide will show you a baby with a cleft lip and palate before and after surgery, and a baby with club feet before and after treatment. Should they be given a death sentence? Their parents chose life. Cleft lip and palate before and after surgery. Should this baby's life be ended? This baby with club feet had the necessary treatment, and you can see the end result. Should this baby's life be ended? Topic 11. Conclusion. The next 10 slides bring the presentation to a conclusion, except for the images that abortionists would prefer that you did not see. Let's recap on the 8th Amendment to the Constitution. What is it? It acknowledges the right to life of both mother and her unborn child. What does it state? It states, the state acknowledges the right to life of the unborn, and with due regard to the equal right to life of the mother, guarantees in its laws to respect and, as far as practicable, by its laws to defend and vindicate that right. What happens if you vote in favour of abortion? If you vote in favour of abortion, and therefore the killing of innocent babies in our hospitals, is anyone's life safe? Would you kill a baby? Then why ask a doctor to do so? Doctors are healers. Doctors are trained to save lives, not end them. Do not have the death of unborn babies on your conscience. Should we keep our constitutional protection for both mother and baby? The Constitution reaffirms the statement in the 1916 Proclamation, which resolves to cherish all the children of the nation equally. Or should we repeal the 8th Amendment to the Constitution, Article 43(3), thus rendering some children less equal in the eyes of the law? What happens if the 8th Amendment is removed? To remove the 8th Amendment from our Constitution would deny every unborn child his or her fundamental right to life and protection under the law before they can draw a single breath. In his article in the Irish Times, Professor Jerry White from Trinity Law School has stated that by simply removing the protection for the unborn opens the way for abortion on demand. The gift of life. Life is a gift. Do you know that no right to abortion exists in international law? The UN adopted the following statement: every human being has an inherent right to life. This right shall be protected by law. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his life. Every one of us received the gift of life. It is such a precious gift. Please do not deny unborn babies their right to life. Every time you say, it's a woman's right to choose, you're really saying, it's a woman's right to kill her baby. Should women have the right to choose? In other words, should any woman have the right to choose to kill her baby? We should all be allowed choices in life, but our choices should not include the right to hurt or kill another person. Abortion violently kills a living, growing child. Every person, born or unborn, has an equal right to life, without which all rights are redundant. It is now your right to choose. Do you vote to protect or kill the innocent? Compassion is the excuse used to support abortion, but killing a baby never equates to compassion. When you enter the polling booth to cast your vote, that decision is yours alone. It is your name that is on the ballot paper. Will you condemn the innocent to death, or will you save innocent lives? The lives of countless innocent unborn babies are now in your hands. When you are asked to vote, please vote to keep the 8th Amendment intact in order to protect both mother and child. We commenced this presentation remembering some of the horrific examples of man's inhumanity to man. But how many of us associated that inhumanity with the unborn baby in the womb? Are you aware that more people are killed by abortion than by war? In the United States, over 59 million babies were killed by abortion from 1973 to 2014. In the UK, there were over 200,000 abortions in 2015, bringing the number of abortions there to over 8 million since the introduction of the 1967 Abortion Act. The reality is that every day abortion kills 2,554 babies in the US and 558 babies in the UK. Man's inhumanity to the baby in the womb. Should the 8th Amendment be repealed, barbaric acts like those shown will become legal and enshrined in our Constitution. This will make a mockery of the 1916 proclamation that resolved to cherish all the children of the nation equally. Should the 8th Amendment be repealed, the ethos in our hospitals will change in that some of our doctors, nurses, administrators and ancillary staff will then become participants in this culture of death. Should the 8th Amendment be repealed, who will be safe in our hospitals? Please vote retain the 8th Amendment to prevent such barbarity. Choose life, not death. And remember that each society will be judged on the basis of how it treats its weakest members. Donegal Pro-Life wish to thank you for taking the time to view this presentation. Please make others aware about this grave human rights issue. And remember that every voice counts, just as every life counts. Life is so precious, please protect it. You may request copies of this video from Donegal Pro-Life on their Facebook page. The presentation is now complete for those who do not wish to see the remaining 3 images, and we will pause the presentation. Addendum. Warning. You are warned that the following 3 graphic images of aborted babies may be upsetting for some people and requires viewer discretion. What the abortionists don't want you to see. In life as in death, we have to face reality. We are unable to run away from it. What follows are 3 real-life images of babies that have been killed by abortion. I urge you to view what you're being asked to condone in order to understand the reality of abortion for the child in the womb. In this first slide we see baby Rowan, who was born alive during a 22-week abortion done at a Florida abortion clinic that used adduction injections to cause fetal demise. This is the remains of a child aborted at 22 weeks. These are the remains of a child that has been torn apart by an abortion procedure. Make your voice heard. The images that you have just seen are unquestionably horrific acts of violence against totally innocent unborn babies. There are many other images to be seen on the internet that we dare not show you. You will be asked to condone these barbaric acts and to allow them to be performed in your local hospital. Silence gives consent. It is therefore so important that you make your voice heard and speak out against these evil acts.
One of the biggest arguments of pro-abortion activists is that abortion is medically necessary. What's your position on that?
We hear all the time how abortion, including especially late-term abortion, is necessary to save women's lives. Nothing could be further from the truth. I spent 9 years working at a tertiary medical center. I mean, there are only certain hospitals in the country that are designated to take care of the really, really high-risk pregnancies. You don't want to duplicate the effort, it's expensive. So these hospitals get referrals from the surrounding area. And Albany Medical Center in Albany, New York, where I worked, was one of them. I was faculty at the hospital for 9 years. And I saw hundreds of cases of really severe pregnancy complications, cancers, heart disease, intractable diabetes out of control, toxemia of pregnancy out of control. And I saved, in those 9 years, I saved hundreds of women from life-threatening pregnancies. And I did that by delivering them, by ending their pregnancy by delivery, either induction of labor or cesarean section.
Delivering the baby.
Delivering the baby. And I always tell people, in all of those years, the number of babies that I was obligated to deliberately kill in the process was zero, none. And I'll give you an example. The key point about late-term abortion that so many people miss is that it takes days to prepare the cervix. This is not a natural situation by any stretch. If you're going to dilate a cervix sufficiently, that starts off essentially as a pinpoint, large enough to dismember or tear apart a baby this big, that cervix has to be dilated, and that can take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. And especially when you're talking about later term pregnancies. Most life-threatening situations, the vast, vast majority of life-threatening situations in pregnancy are not going to arise until 24, 25, 26 weeks of pregnancy and higher. And when you're talking about that, you're talking about abortion procedures that take 2 and 3 days to prepare the cervix. And I'll give you a classic example. This is a real case. A lady came to the hospital at 27 weeks of pregnancy with severe toxemia. Her blood pressure, you know, a normal blood pressure is about 120 over 80. Her blood pressure was 220 over 160. Okay, this lady would literally be minutes or hours away from a stroke. What do you do in a situation like that? We stabilized her, brought her back, did a cesarean section, had her delivered within an hour of arriving at the hospital. She and her baby did just fine.
Amazing.
Now, let's say we wanted to use abortion to save her life, okay? If with that kind of blood pressure and that kind of problem, if we waited 2 to 3 days to get her cervix prepared, she would never make it. She would have been dead. And that's a perfect example. You never need late-term abortion to save a woman's life. If necessary, you accomplish the delivery. Now, did every one of those children make it because they were preterm? No. But they all had a chance, and most of them did make it.
What you're saying is so amazing, Dr. Levatino, because a lot of people never hear this. They assume when abortion is brought up that it's necessary to kill that child, sometimes to save the mother's life. But you're saying it may be necessary to deliver the baby, but you never have to purposely go and kill that child.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
So why is this such a huge argument for pro-abortion advocates to say it's necessary to kill to save the life of the mother?
That argument I don't understand. In my experience over almost a decade, I never had to kill deliberately a single child to save a woman's life during pregnancy. There's a wider discussion though. Politically, always listen very carefully to the words that are being used. You know, we need to pass law X, Y, and Z because it protects women's health. Bill Clinton, I will be happy to sign a ban on partial birth abortion so long as it includes an exception on women's health. Well, what do they mean? Now, I have a law degree, and every lawyer knows that every single word has meaning. And what Roe didn't do was define the word health. Doe versus Bolton did. It says that health, the term health, includes a woman's physical health. Okay, but it didn't say how badly impaired her physical health had to be for it to be a problem. It includes her mental health. Okay, but again, how bad does her mental health has to be? I suppose I can imagine, I never saw one, but I can imagine a case of if the woman's going to have a psychotic break because of her pregnancy, that certainly seems like a severe mental health problem. How about she's under tremendous stress? How about, I just don't think I can cope with this pregnancy? That's mental health too. It includes her economic health. Whoa, how much money do you have to be economically healthy? Not defined. And if that wasn't enough, it includes her social health. What in blazes does that mean? What it means then when a politician says, I would be happy to support your bill so long as it has a health exception, translation, I would be happy to support your bill so long as it contains an exception so big that the bill is of no real practical effect. I can't understand why any woman would want to have a medical abortion, and I'll explain why. No matter how abortion-minded she is, there are a lot of problems with RU46.
Unborn babies need you to speak out on their behalf. Be a voice for the voiceless. We need volunteers to assist in every parish throughout our country. Working together, we will protect life.